And one for that stranger, too. Right in the face. Overhead, the tent framework was visible only as a faint pattern of occluded stars. It seemed they stood free in a chill night wind. Air circulation was high tonight, of course. Broken glass, shouts, a scream. It really was loud. People were going crazy. One last paving stone heaved at a big lit picture window across the grass. It missed. He slipped further into the trees. Near the southern wall, he saw someone under a sycamore. Salim, circling nervously. Salim, Frank called quietly, sweating. He reached into his jumper pocket, carefully felt in the bag, and palmed the trio of stem patches. Synergy could be so powerful, for good or ill. He walked forward and roughly embraced the young Arab. The patches hit and penetrated Salim's light cotton shirt. Frank pulled back. Now, Salim had about 6 hours. Did you speak with Boone? He asked. I tried, Chalmers said. He didn't listen. He lied to me. It was so easy to feign distress. 25 years of friendship, and he lied to me. He struck a tree trunk with his palm, and the patches flew away in the dark. He controlled himself. His coalition is going to recommend that all Martian settlements originate in the countries that signed the first treaty. It was possible, and it was certainly plausible. He hates us, Salim cried. He hates everything that gets in his way. And he can see that Islam is still a real force in people's lives. It shapes the way people think, and he can't stand that. Salim shuddered. In the gloom, the whites of his eyes were bright. He has to be stopped. Frank turned aside, leaned against a tree. I don't know. You said it yourself. Talk means nothing. Frank circled the tree, feeling dizzy. You fool, he thought. Talk means everything. We are nothing but information exchange. Talk is all we have. He came on Salim again and said, How? The planet. It is our way. The city gates are locked tonight. That stopped him. His hands started to twist. But the farm's outer gates will be unlocked. But the farm's outer gates will be locked. Oh God, I fucked that up. I skipped a line. He came You said it yourself, talk means nothing. Frank circled the tree, feeling dizzy. You fool, he thought. He came on Salim again and said, how? The planet, it is our way. The city gates are locked tonight. That stopped him. His hands started to twist. Frank said, but the gate to the farm is still open. But the farm's outer gates will be locked. But the farm's outer gates will be locked. Frank shrugged. Let him figure it out. And quickly enough, Salim blinked and said, ah. Then he was gone. Frank sat between trees on the ground. It was a sandy, damp, brown dirt, product of a great deal of engineering. Nothing in the city was natural. Nothing. After a time, he got to his feet. He walked through the park, looking at people. If I find one good city, I will spare the man. But in an opened area, masked figures darted together to grapple and fight, surrounded by watchers who smelled blood. Frank went back to the construction site to get more bricks. He threw them, and some people saw him, and he had to run. Into the trees again, into the little tented wilderness, escaping predators while high on adrenaline, the greatest drug of all. He laughed wildly. Suddenly, he caught sight of Maya, standing alone by the temporary platform up at the apex. She wore a white domino, but it was certainly her. The proportions of the figure, the hair, the stance itself, all unmistakably Maya. Maya, all unmistakably Maya Toytovna. Maya Toytovna. I should have prepared for this. The proportions of the figure, wore a domino, like those, you know those theater masks of like the tragedy and the comedy? Like it's like a white domino mask. It's like the laughing one and the frown, like Zorro. Sure. Does Zorro wear a domino mask? Okay, yeah, she was wearing a domino. Ugh. I just lost my place. My IRL place from when I was reading the book. Berniculus, thank you. She wore a white domino, but it was certainly her. The proportions of the figure, the hair, the stance itself, all unmistakably Maya Toytovna. The first 100, the little band, they were the only ones truly alive to him anymore. The rest were ghosts. Frank hurried toward her, tripping over uneven ground. He squeezed a rock buried deep in one coat pocket, thinking, come on, you bitch. Say something to save him. Say something that will make me run the length of the city to save him. She heard his approach and turned. She wore a phosphorescent white domino with metallic blue sequins. It was hard to see her eyes. "Hello, Frank," she said, as if he wore no mask. He almost turned and ran. Mere recognition was almost enough to do it. But he stayed. He said, "Hello, Maya. Nice sunset, wasn't it? Spectacular. Nature has no taste. It's just a city inauguration, but it looked like Judgment Day." They were under a streetlight, standing on their shadows. She said, "Have you enjoyed yourself?" "Very much, and you?" "It's getting a little wild." "It's understandable, don't you think? We're out of our holes, Maya. We're on the surface at last. And what a surface. You only get these kinds of long views on Tharsis." "It's a good location," she agreed. "It will be a great city," Frank predicted. "But where do you live these days, Maya?" "In Underhill, Frank, as always. You know that." "But you're never there, are you? I haven't seen you in a year or more." "Has it been that long?" "Well, I've been in Hellas. Surely you've heard." "Who would tell me?" She shook her head and the blue sequins glittered. "Frank." She turned away. She turned aside, as if to walk away from the question's implications. Angrily, Frank circled her, stood in her path. "That time on the Ares," he said. His voice was tight, and he twisted his neck to loosen his throat, to make speech easier. "What happened, Maya? What happened?" She shrugged and did not meet his gaze. For a long time, she did not speak. Then she looked at him. "The spur of the moment," she said. And then it was ringing midnight, and they were in the Martian time slip. The 39.5-minute gap between 12 and 12:01, when all the clocks went blank or stopped moving. This was how the first 100 had decided to reconcile Mars' slightly longer day with the 24-hour clock. And the solution had proved oddly satisfactory. Every night, to step out for a while the flickering numbers, every night to step out for a while out of the flickering numbers, out of the remorseless sweep of the second hand. And tonight, as the bells rang midnight, the whole city went mad. 40 minutes outside of time. It was bound to be the peak of the celebration, Everyone knew that instinctively. Fireworks were going off. People were cheering. Sirens tore through the sound. And the cheering redoubled. Frank and Maya watched the fireworks, listened to the noise. Then there was a noise that was somehow different. Desperate cries. Serious screams. "What's that?" Maya said. "A fight," Frank replied, cocking an ear. "Something done in the spur of the moment, perhaps." She stared at him. And quickly he added, "Maybe we should go have a look." The cries intensified. Trouble somewhere. They started down through the park, their steps getting longer until they were in the Martian lope. The park seemed bigger to Frank, and for a moment he was scared. The central boulevard was covered with trash. People darted through the dark in predatory schools. A nerve-grating siren went off. The alarm that signaled a break in the tent. Windows were shattering up and down the boulevard. There on the street grass was a man flat on his back, the surrounding grass smeared with black streaks. Chalmers seized the arm of a woman crouched over him. "What happened?" he shouted. She was weeping. "They fought! They are fighting!" "Who? Swiss? Arab?" "Strangers," she said. "Auslander. Auslander." She looked blindly at Frank. "Get help." Frank rejoined Maya, who was talking to a group next to another fallen figure. "What the hell's going on?" he said to her as they took off toward the city's hospital. "It's a riot," she said. "I don't know why." Her mouth was a straight slash, in skin as white as the domino still covering her eyes. Frank pulled off his mask and threw it away. There was broken glass all over the street. A man rushed at them. "Frank, Maya!" It was Sax Russell. Frank had never seen the little man so agitated. "Frank, Maya!" "It's John. He's been attacked." "What?" they exclaimed together. "He tried to stop a fight, and 3 or 4 men jumped him. They knocked him down and dragged him away." "You didn't stop them?" Maya asked. "You didn't stop them?" Maya cried. "We tried. A whole bunch of us chased them, but they lost us in the Medina." Maya looked at Frank. "What's going on?" he cried. "Where would anyone take him?" "The gates," she said. "But they're locked tonight, aren't they?" "Maybe not to everyone." They followed her to the Medina. Street lights were broken and there was glass underfoot. They found a fire marshal and went to the Turkish gate. He unlocked it and several of them hurried through, throwing on walkers at emergency speed. Then out into the night to look around, illuminated by the bathysphere glow. Oh my God. Then throwing on walkers at emergency speed, then out into the night to look around. Illuminated by the bathysphere glow of the city. Frank's ankles hurt with the night cold, and he could feel the precise configuration of his lungs, as if 2 globes of ice had been inserted in his chest to cool the rapid beat of his heart. Nothing out there. Back inside. Over the northern wall and the Syrian gate, and out again under the stars. Nothing. It took them a long time to think of the farm. By then, there were about 30 of them in walkers, and they ran down and through the lock and flooded down the farm's aisles, running between crops. They found him among the radishes. His jacket was pulled over his face in the standard emergency air pocket. He must have done it unconsciously, because when they rolled him carefully onto one side, they saw a lump behind one ear. "Get him inside," Maya said, her voice a bitter croak. "Hurry, get him inside." 4 of them lifted him. Chalmers cradled John's head, and his fingers were intertwined with Maya's. They trotted back up the shallow steps. Through the farm gate, they stumbled back into the city. One of the Swiss led them to the nearest medical center, already crowded with desperate people. They got John onto an empty bench. His unconscious expression was pinched, determined. Frank tore off his helmet and went to work pulling rank, bullying into the emergency rooms and shouting at the doctors and nurses. They ignored him until one doctor said, "Shut up, I'm coming." She went into the hallway and with a nurse's help, clipped John into a monitor, then checked him out with the abstracted, absent look that doctors have while working. Hands at neck and face, and head and chest, stethoscope. Maya explained what they knew. The doctor took down an oxygen unit from the wall, looking at the monitor. Her mouth was bunched into a displeased little knot. Maya sat at the end of the bench, face suddenly distraught. Her domino had long since disappeared. Frank crouched beside her. "We can keep working on him," the doctor said. "But I'm afraid he's gone. Too long without oxygen, you know." "Keep working on him," Maya said. They did, of course. Eventually, other medical people arrived, and they carted him off to an emergency room. Frank, Maya, Sax, Samantha, and a number of locals sat outside in the hall. Doctors came and went. Their faces had the blank look they took on in the presence of death. Protective masks. One came out and shook his head. "He's dead. Too long out there." Frank leaned his head back against the wall. When Reinhold Messner returned from the first solo climb of Everest, he was severely dehydrated and utterly exhausted. He fell down most of the last part of the descent and collapsed on the Rongbuk Glacier. And as he was crawling over it on his hands and knees, he was crawling over it on hands and knees when the woman who was his entire support team reached him, and he looked up at her out of the delirium and said, "Where are all my friends?" It was quiet. No sound but the low hum and whoosh that one never escaped on Mars. Maya put a hand on Frank's shoulder, and he almost flinched. His throat clamped down to nothing. It really hurt. "I'm sorry," he managed to say. She shrugged the remark aside, frowned. She had somewhat the air of the medical people. "Well," she said, "you never liked him much anyway." "True," he said, thinking it would be politic to seem honest with her in the moment. But then he shuddered and said bitterly, "What do you know about what I like and what I don't anyway?" She shrugged the remark aside, frowned. She had somewhat the air of the medical people. "Well," she said, "you never liked him much anyway." "True," he said, thinking it would be politic to seem honest with her at that moment. But then he shuddered and said bitterly, "What do you know about what I like or don't like?" He shrugged her hand aside, struggled to his feet. She didn't know. None of them knew. He started to go into the emergency room. Changed his mind. Time enough for that at the funeral. He felt hollow. And suddenly it seemed to him that everything good had gone away. He left the medical center. Impossible not to feel sentimental at such moments. He walked through the strangely hushed darkness of the city into the land of Nod. The streets glinted as if stars had fallen onto the pavement. People stood in clumps, stunned by the news. Frank Chalmers made his way through them, feeling their stares, moving without thought toward the platform at the top of the town. And as he walked, he said to himself, "Now we'll see what I can do with this planet." Dun dun dun. Delightful. Thank you, chat. Thank you, viewer. I actually can't smell it. I might have COVID. I don't know. Oh, God. All right. I will be right back. Seriously, thank you all for listening to me read books. It's fucking awesome that you do this. And I love doing it too. Thank you.